All right, welcome to video 3 on the 2018 Scouting Series. What I'm going to go over today, since we kind of broke down last video, picking out a wildlife management area or state land and then dissecting it, getting away from human pressure, looking at the private land surrounding stuff. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to actually bring out the aerial photographs. I'm going to pick out a couple areas for my actual scouting trip is next weekend, so I'm going to identify a couple areas, why I picked those areas, and then next weekend I'll take the camera with me as I scout those areas. I'll take some more video of that and we'll see what we find, pick out some trees, look at access routes and all that kind of stuff. So let's get started with this. Hang on just a second, I'm going to grab the camera, it's in my hand, and hold it so you can have a close-up of the actual aerials. Okay, in this first aerial, this is the area that I picked out that I'm going to scout next weekend. And the actual wildlife management follows this creek. The blue represents a creek right along this fence line all the way down. And then on this side here is the border here. The nearest access is about a mile this way and a mile and a half back this way. So this area is very hard to get to, and it's why I picked it. Now we might have some pressure that we'll encounter from the private land side. We'll see when we get there. You can see that there's a couple wheat fields here, and then down in this corner here there's also an additional wheat field with a nice, what appears to be about a 5 to 6 foot wide creek, and typically in this area they're anywhere from 4 to 8, 9 foot deep. So what I did in this photograph is I circled 4 areas that, and there's a ton of other areas, okay, and I'll show that on the next map, but the 4 areas where I personally believe, without ever having stepped into this place, are probably going to harbor the bigger bucks. And I'll go through why I picked these 4 areas in the next few photographs. So here's one where I just started circling all the areas of interest that I would want to look at, that I will look at next weekend, because I think they're buck bedding areas. Probably my favorite area on this whole map is this here, and I'll give you a close-up why I like this area so much. But needless to say, with this creek right here, the wheat fields, this is a triple funnel. It's going to be an excellent site if there's a big buck in the area come late October, early November. The rest of these are primarily bedding areas along this creek and oxbows. I do have some points identified. This area right up in here I really like. I think late season this is going to be a prime buck bedding area, simply because if we get pressure on these wheat fields, these deer are going to cross this creek and gravitate towards this point, is my belief. There's a big wheat field down here, so all these oxbows along the creek will be good. But I also really like this clump of trees right here. Now what you can't see is further down, this is all CRP, and the wheat field comes to about right here. With our winds primarily blown back from the southwest, I really think in early season, this point right here and these isolated islands of trees in the middle of this CRP field, and maybe this point here, are going to be the primary buck bedding for early season before the pressure really starts. One thing to keep note of, down south, our dove seasons typically start the 1st of September, bow seasons later in October. So these might get blown out even before deer season gets here. The only way to find that out is to actually hunt the property. So here, this is just some of the areas that I will definitely cover when I go out next weekend, with these 4 going to be the primary ones where I slow down and really spend a lot of time, and I'll film what I see in those. So let's go up to my favorite spot. Let me pull up a map of that area and kind of go through why I like this so much. And once again, on the far views, I like the summertime with the foliage and stuff, because it really shows a difference in trees. Like you can see right up in here, these are probably cottonwoods, where these down here are probably some of your river elms, hackberry, mesquite, even on some of the edges and stuff like that. Some of the locust trees, that's primarily elm in this area, with cottonwoods up here. But why I really, really like this area, first of all, you've got a major oxbow here, and we know that this is probably bedding here. Also another major oxbow here, and I really like this area. It really shows this a lot better. In this picture, it looks like it's solid wood. You can kind of see the outline here. But looking at this, this is more tall weeds and brush and briars, and this is the actual edge. So I really think we're going to find a lot of bedding here and maybe on these isolated trees right in here. Now, one thing that a lot of people don't or assume is that they always bed on the inside bend. I've actually found that mature bucks typically, or a lot of times, bed on the outside bend of a creek or a river. This clump of trees right here is definitely an area I'm going to focus on, as are these trees back off in here. But anyway, I really want to zoom in on this area right here and talk about why I like this so much. First of all, you can see the wheat field there, and then there's another one down here. But you have a creek running right up here. And I said once again last week, you got to look for those corridors, those travel corridors coming in off of the public land. And this is a perfect travel corridor. It really shows up well here. These bucks are going to travel both sides of that creek depending on the wind. I marked on here an F because I would almost guarantee you're going to find at some place a good fence crossing on both sides of this creek. The purple here kind of represents where I think the major travel patterns are going to be. The blue line is where I'm going to walk in. I will be absolutely shocked, since this creek comes into right here, if we don't find a creek crossing here, a creek crossing on this side, and even a creek crossing on this side. But primarily why I like this is you have a good bedding oxbow here, here, and over here, and even up in here, in close proximity to this. You have large doe bedding areas all through this stuff. So during late October, early November, those deer, whether they're traveling this creek, whether they're coming down this creek line here, whether they're coming up the fence row from this block of timber over here, or whether they're following the creek here, at some point, unless they cross the creek, they're going to pass through this funnel. So this is an ideal triple funnel, and you can see I put the star here because the predominant wind's usually this way. And I really think I'm going to focus initially on trying to find a tree for a creek crossing on this side here, and with both of these funneling right down into here, I really think right in here is going to be your best selection if the sign shows that there's a good buck in here. So this is typically how I'll mark these up. You know, the blue showing where I'll walk in the morning, the red is my afternoon. And I mark on here potential fence crossings where I want to look for it. My stars indicate where the major bottlenecks are. I might put a C where, before I ever step foot on this property, I'm making an assumption that I think there's going to be creek crossings in here. So everything points me to this is going to be a dynamite setup, provided the people from the private land don't come over here and booger this up. In that case, I think I would fall back to these isolated bedding areas further in, because most of these people are going to be wanting to camp out right on this wheat field, and during daylight, you know, if the pressure's there, the bucks just aren't going to show up. So I'd concentrate more along here. So this is an area we'll definitely, as you can see, I'm going to walk this entire creek. I'll probably spend a lot of time walking all these edges here. I'm going to head down this fence row to look at these isolated trees later. This fence row